Hey, 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 today is Thursday. Yes, we are so close to Friday. So I will try to make your wait for the weekend a bit easier because the Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Yes, I am Jeff McAleer. I'm back once again, and I'm your host here at the Daily Dope, as well as being the Grand Poobah of the GamingGang.com. So welcome aboard. Today is Thursday, May 17th. Thursdays mean RPGs for the most part around these parts here in the Duct Tape Studios. So I am actually going to review the core rulebook for the Dark Eye fantasy role-playing game from my new friends over at Ulisses North America. So pretty cool. It is a pretty big book. Amazingly enough, as I drop it, doesn't look like this would be 414 pages, does it? But it is. It is a big core rulebook. So I will be reviewing that in just a bit. Got a little bit of news, not a ton of news today, but I will get to that in just a second as well. I have to say, I was pretty thrilled to see the news today about Microsoft creating a new kind of like a easily accessible controller that's going to be released. I guess they've been working on this for quite a few years now, and quite a few different companies have teamed up with Microsoft to create this, and it looks like it's about yay big, and I think it's fantastic. I think it's fantastic that finally console gamers, at least those using Xbox, are going to, those who have various different physical disabilities will have a much easier time to enjoy gaming like the rest of us. I thought that was really cool. I actually even got a little teary-eyed when I was sort of reading the article that was kind of announcing that that is on the very near horizon. So I thought that was very, very cool. Really, really dug that. All right, so anyway, let's get into the news. I only have a few news pieces, but first off, funny enough, Wednesdays are usually kind of War Game Wednesdays. I wish I had this piece of news yesterday because there is a new expansion that is on the horizon from Flying Pig Games for Old School Tactical Volume 2. And I've got the dope. That's right, Old School Tactical Volume 2 Ghost Front is available for pre-order from Flying Pig Games. Ghost Front. This expansion to Old School Tactical Volume 2 is available for pre-order. How many times do we have to say that? Anyway, I should point out anyone pre-ordering the game before 6 a.m. Eastern on May 21st will get a special pre-order price of $35. Those who pre-order after that will pay $40, and once the game is in stock, or I should say the expansion, it will carry an MSRP of $45. The game is going to arrive in the third quarter of 2018. So, I had to point out, this is an expansion you must own Old School Tactical Volume 2 to play Ghost Front. Ghost Front is the second expansion to, you guessed it, OST Volume 2, covering the Germans' Ardennes Offensive of 1944. Mark, come on, really? Battle of the Bulge? Hasn't that been done to death? I'm teasing. Actually, Old School Tactical Volume 2 is very cool. I did review it, I think it was about a couple months ago, maybe a month and a half ago. So, dug it a lot. Anyway, this box expansion is going to include a new 30-inch by 41-inch mounted map board depicting snowy Ardennes terrain, a new sheet of counters with new SS and American units, unit data cards, and an 11 scenario booklet. It includes, in detail, a full sheet of 102 counters, including new SS units, Stug 3s, Panzer IV 70 tank destroyers, the American Jumbo Sherman M5 and M1 anti-tank gun, and more. The 11 new scenarios include Losdell Crossroads, Knocking on the Door, Cat and Mouse, Grief 1, Dom Buchenbach. Not sure what that... Actually, wasn't that one of the towns? Maybe not. I don't know. Stand with St. Veith, Nuts, Joyev Noel, Daredevil Tankers, and Peepers Chariots. I think it's either, or it might be Piper. And of course, it includes a sharp-looking box to put it all in. I would hope. I hope it wouldn't just show up in a brown paper bag and just open it up and dump it out. As I mentioned, as long as you order in time, on or before May 21st, you can snag the expansion for $35. Very cool. Old School Tactical is a fun game. For one, I have to point out that it's, even though the name is Old School Tactical, it does have some modern, I don't want to say chrome, but kind of modern feel to some of the mechanics to the game. Really like it. Very cool game. I have not gotten a chance to play it in the past, well, since I did the review, actually. But, yeah, maybe this weekend I'll bring it over to my brother's house, because we should be doing some gaming this weekend, so looking forward to that. Should be a good amount of gaming. And I do believe my best friend Elliot Miller, over from voiceof.com, will be showing up. Anyway, I have to say I've got a double dip of Mark H. Walker news today, because Mark actually has a new role-playing game that's going to be released by Tiny Battle Publishing. And I've got the dope on Dark War. It's 1985. West Germany teeters on the brink of defeat. The American Fifth Corps is all but crushed, and Soviet armored formations rush to the French border. In a small town near the North Sea, a temporary POW camp holds hundreds of NATO soldiers, not all of them human. A handful make a break for freedom. Welcome to Mark Walker's... Wait a second, it should be Mark H. Walker. What happened to the middle initial here? Welcome to Mark Walker's Dark War, a role-playing game set in the midst of World War III, thundering with authentic skirmishes and screeching with the bone-chilling cries of the dark entities unleashed by the war's massive bloodletting. It's role-playing military horror at its best. Is that a genre that I'm not overly aware of? Didn't know military horror was a role-playing genre, but hey, this could be the first game, so that would make it the best. Dark War uses a simple system based on a single rule. Anytime you roll a 4 or greater, you get a success. That success might mean you pump 2 AK-47 rounds into a werewolf, or that your nurse heals a team member, or a witch gains control of a weak-minded soldier, forcing him to fire on his comrade. What varies are the dice that you use. When building your own character, you assign a fixed number of dice, 4d4s, 3d6s, and 2d8s, to 7 attributes: shooting, melee, speed, intelligence, charm, will, and dodge, to determine what type of individual you control. The more dice and the better the dice assigned to an attribute, the greater chance you have of rolling successes. But the customization doesn't end there. You can use experience points to buy kickers, such as rifles, which adds an additional d6 when firing a rifle, or Power of Prayer, that allows a character to heal a teammate within 2 squares. Too many options? Just choose a group of pre-generated characters from the bestiary, slap them on the provided map, and have at it. Or, if you prefer, you can fight out one of the 3 included skirmishes. Right now, you can pre-order Dark War at the discounted price of $30 from Tiny Battle Publishing, and the game should be shipping out in June. I have to say that it is very possible that this will probably come out in PDF too. Maybe through Drive-Thru RPG, but certainly the War Game Vault. No, it's not really a war game, though. I mean, it is a role-playing game. It does sound kind of unique, and I have to admit, where's it floating around? Nuclear Winter 68, which is just back here. I don't know if it's showing up on camera or not. That is, it's a lock and load title back from when Mark Walker ran Lock and Load Games. And it's a very, very cool sort of oddball Nazi survive World War II kind of game, and a lot of fun, really fun. And I would almost think from just kind of the vibe I get from Dark War, this could actually make for a very cool kind of rules light skirmish miniatures sort of game too. So pretty sweet. All right, since today is Thursday and I'm talking about RPGs, how about another role-playing game news piece? Because there is a starter set that is going to arrive just in time for this year's holiday season, and it's for Star Trek Adventures, and I've got the dope. In time for the 2018 holiday season, Modiphius Entertainment will release a Star Trek Adventures starter set. It will introduce new players to the tabletop role-playing game with a rules booklet and a 3-part campaign that guides you through the game mechanics as you play. The box set will also contain everything you need to play with dice, tokens, poster maps, and pre-generated player character folios. Star Trek Adventures takes you to the final frontier of the galaxy with everything you need to begin playing the tabletop role-playing game in one introductory boxed set. The specific details what it includes: it has the starter rules booklet, giving you an overview of the 2D20 system, a 3-mission campaign booklet that guides you through the game mechanics as you play, 6 pre-gen character sheets, including 5 Starfleet officers and 1 Galaxy-class vessel, 2 20-sided dice, and 4 custom 6-sided dice. There are also tokens for momentum, threat, and characters, plus poster maps for locations in the campaign. The Star Trek Adventures starter set is actually available for pre-order right now. It is supposed to arrive in November, and it does carry a very friendly MSRP of $30. Of course, you have to keep in mind, Modiphius Entertainment is located across the pond, so kind of think if you do the pre-order now, you're going to have to pay for the shipping from the UK. So you may want to find out from your friendly local game store if they plan on carrying the starter set. I've got to say that I think Star Trek Adventures is phenomenal. I think it is excellent. Now, I got to be honest, I have not gotten a chance to look at all the various source books that have started to come out, but the core book itself, excellent, fantastic. The only beef I had was the white text on black background was a little tough on your eyes, but in PDF it is available with the black on white, so making it way, way easier for you to make out. Well, it was easy to read. It was just your eyes would get tired after a while. But I had to point out that the starter set has an MSRP of $30. You may, if you don't want to wait to just get the starter set, you might keep your eyes peeled at Drive-Thru RPG, because you might be able to see the PDFs for Star Trek Adventures on sale from time to time. I believe the core book right now is $20, but it's a good beefy sized core book, so pretty cool. All right, well, we're talking about Star Trek. How about we talk a little bit about Star Wars, because I'm pretty excited, because next year's Star Wars celebration will be held right in my backyard. That's right, Chicago, Illinois. Sweet! Pretty pumped, because it is moving from Orlando, Florida, which is where it has been held for the past few years. I swear I could almost recall that it was originally out in LA. Anyway, a few years back. I thought it was out in LA or Anaheim, something like that. Here's the dope. Remove those restraining bolts and pack your bags. Star Wars Celebration, the one-of-a-kind event that welcomes thousands of fans from around the world, will be hosted in a brand new location for its 20th anniversary in 2019. The Star Wars show exclusively had announced yesterday. Chicago will be the setting for fans to celebrate all things Star Wars at McCormick Place on April 11th through the 15th, 2019. Tickets, including multi-day, single-day, and VIP passes, are scheduled to go on sale June 5th at noon Central Standard Time at StarWarsCelebration.com. Star Wars Celebration is a fan experience like no other. Each day of the convention is filled with entertainment, celebrity appearances, stage shows, panels, interactive events, exclusive merchandise, screenings, and once-in-a-lifetime glimpses into the future of the epic saga. So, once again, Star Wars Celebration will take place April 11th through the 15th, 2019 in Chicago, Illinois. Pretty cool. It's also pretty cool because it is run by Reed Pop, and we have a pretty good relationship with Reed Pop. So odds are the gaming gang is going to have press passes to go check out Star Wars Celebration in Chicago. I guarantee we could have gone to Orlando, but only so much money in the budget usually to go check out the various different conventions, things like that are floating around out there. All right, so that is the news for today. I do want to point out, I got word of this like minutes before I went live, but as I mentioned before, Drive-Thru RPG, the gaming gang, thus the Daily Dope, is an affiliate of Drive-Thru RPG. They just announced a flash sale for Dungeons and Dragons supplements. Now, right now, May is the big D&D sale over at Drive-Thru RPG, as well as the Dungeon Masters Guild. And it's like up to 33% off. I think it's, if I remember right, I think it's like up to 33% off thousands. I think it's almost 10,000 D&D PDFs. Well, they just launched a Dragons flash sale. So it is 20 PDFs that are specifically about dragons that are up to 66% off. And I took a quick peek, and it looks like all 20 are actually 66% off. So that's a little extra savings right now during the D&D May sale. But I do want to point out this flash sale will only run through the weekend at Drive-Thru RPG. And as always, I mentioned that, wow, camera almost seemed to like jiggle for a second on my replay here. I don't know what in the world was that. Maybe I just caught something out of the corner of my eye. Don't know. Anyway, I was going to say that if you are going to visit Drive-Thru RPG, please stop by thegaminggang.com, click on one of our banners, and if you make a purchase, we get a small portion. And I swear, I keep telling everybody, those little pieces of those sales really do add up, really does help me out. All right, so anyway, I am going to get into the review in just a few minutes. Did want to talk about a couple of things. Wanted to mention what's cooking on tomorrow's show as well as Monday's show. And I want to jump into the mailbag real quick. Somebody had emailed me, and I wanted to respond to that. But anyway, let me take a peek here. All right, so coming up on tomorrow's show, on Friday's show, I am going to be reviewing Remnants from my friends over at Fireside Games. It is the post-apocalyptic board game, and I swear it's weird. I'm gonna have to take a look at the finished stream because it almost looks like there's like a little kind of like hop going on with the video, but I don't know, kind of weird. Sometimes my preview of the stream looks different than the finished product. I don't know why. It's kind of odd. All right, so that's tomorrow's show. Then on Monday's show, now I took a peek through Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes on Tuesday's show, and I'm going to review it on Monday's show. Now, speaking of Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, I do have a giveaway going on right now. Now, I'm not going to talk about this every single day because it just seems silly for me to constantly be repeating myself for a giveaway. But the fine folks at Wizards of the Coast actually sent me both copies of Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. So I've got the standard edition that arrives in stores on the 29th and the limited edition, which will be in select stores on the 18th. I am going to do a giveaway for my copy of the limited edition of Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. And it's very easy to win. 2 pieces to it. Really, viewers out there only have to do 1 piece of it. As far as on YouTube, it is for YouTube subscribers only, and you must comment on a video from the 15th of May until the 28th of May. All you gotta do is comment on one of the videos. Try to make it a nice comment. I don't really want to be giving away a very cool limited edition book to someone who's like, you stink. Kind of like, well, might not put you in the running if you do that. So anyway, all you gotta do is comment on one of the videos from the 15th through the 28th, and I have to have 1,010 subscribers or more. So I think that puts me, about 40 out. 40 out from 1,010 subscribers. So not only will you receive the book, I will also include the stickers. And I keep saying that I don't know if these stickers are like a promo item or if when you go and buy the book at a friendly local game store, you get a copy of the stickers. Maybe they only come with the limited edition. I don't know. They were in the box. I don't need stickers. I will include those with that as well. All right. So anyway, I also wanted to mention that I was going to jump into the mailbag for a second. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this, but I did get an email from someone named Len in New York, and they took issue with me talking about the Mighty Boards Kickstarter yesterday for Post-Human Saga, because I had mentioned that on one hand, I had played, I said Renegade, which I was doing an unboxing for Renegade yesterday from Victory Point Games. I did not mean Renegade, I meant Vengeance, which is right up here. Vengeance, which was a Mighty Boards game that I believe Greenbrier Games also helped produce. They may have done the miniatures. And I said, hey, I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. But then I was taken aback a little bit by the number of reviewers who they, Mighty Boards included for video reviews, who are well-known shills. That essentially, if you throw money at these people, they will shoot a video and they will say your game is great. Bar none. I mean, you never see negative reviews from these people, and they are all over Kickstarter projects. And they are actually the reason why some folks will not back projects that they see reviews from these people, right? Now, I didn't name anybody by name, but I did point out I was not talking about the Dice Tower because I saw the Dice Tower did have a video about Post-Human Saga, right? So I was not talking about them. I did not name names. So Len in New York said, I had a whole lot of nerve calling people out as shills. Got a lot of nerve doing that. To that I reply, so what takes more nerve? To call people out on what they obviously are, that we've seen it. I mean, they've been around for a few years. We know it. Most people who follow gaming understand that you can't really rely on these people's reviews because, according to them, everything's like, yeah, it's great. Spend your money. No, sorry. Doesn't work that way. Some games suck. That's just how it works. Some games suck, And there are games that are up for crowdfunding and they suck. Okay? Just how it works. So it takes a lot more nerve for me to say, hey, you know what? A lot of shills have videos on this Kickstarter project. Or does it take more nerve to be basically a shill, take money, and then lie to the public about if a game is good or not, right? So, and I mean, you know, maybe these people have very, very low expectations for games or something like that. I mean, there used to be, I'm not going to name names on this one either. There used to be a podcast that was pretty popular back in the day, back when Elliot Miller and I were doing our podcast as well. And these folks were always like, yeah, this game's awesome, this game's great, this is fantastic, this is wonderful, wonderful game. And we would be playing the same games, and we were sort of like, well, it's all right. I don't know, I'm not gonna like write home about this. And we would have reviews that were saying, yeah, you know, the game's okay. I mean, it's not, you know, knocking it out of the park or anything like that. It's not reinventing the wheel. Sliced bread is still better, you know. And it's sort of like, kind of like, I don't know. I have no idea. Now, myself personally, I try not to be overly negative about something. And I usually, even if I dislike a game, and it takes a lot for me to really despise a game, but there have been some reviews I have done where I was just like, what was the purpose of making this game? It just pissed everybody off playing it, you know, things like that. It's usually party games tend to do that. But I tend to, even if I'm not a big fan of something, I can usually have an idea of who the game would be for, and I'll point folks in that direction. I'll say, hey, it's not my cup of tea, that's why I'm giving it this score, but folks who are into XYZ or newer to the hobby or want something that's rules light or plays quick or whatever might want to give a peek. But anyway, so yes, so that's why so, you know, it's my show. I can say whatever I want, right? You know, I am not a shill. And I know there are there are folks out there who personally don't care for me because I share my opinion. I tell you what I think. And once again, it's just my opinion like anything else. Even reviews, people don't agree with me on a review. It's sort of like, well, it's just an opinion. I'm not saying that this is, you know, hey, this is set in stone. This is how it is. It's how the world works because I don't care for that game. Whatever, no big deal. All right, so I know some folks are tuning in because they want to check out my review of the Dark Guide core rules. So why don't we get on into that? So I have to point out, this is the 5th edition of the Dark Guide from Ulisses North America. It's written by Alex Spoor, Jens Ulrich, I don't know, Evie Demirital, and Daniel Simon Richter, and the art is provided by far too many artists for me to name. But I will say, I totally dig the art. It is 416 pages in length. It can be had in hardcover for, I believe, $49.99. The softcover digest size that I am going to do my review of can be had for $20, even though the MSRP on the back says $25, and the PDF is available for $19.99 through Drive-Thru RPG. But honestly, if you don't worry about having to carry around a digest-sized book, then by all means, for a penny more, snag the physical book. There's just something about hanging on to a physical book as opposed to a PDF. Don't get me wrong, I love PDFs too. All right, and the English language edition was released in 2016. I believe late spring is when it originally came out. So let's swing on over to the other camera and get this all set up here. I've got some dice out here as well, just kind of discuss this. So, for those who don't know, The Dark Eye is actually the most popular role-playing game in Germany, and it has been for about 30 years. Outsells Pathfinder, Dungeons and Dragons easily. I think currently D&D is the closest competition that the Dark Eye has. As I pointed out, this is the 5th edition, translated into English. I am not all that fluent with the Dark Eye. I have read the core book. I have been taking a peek at some of the other books that Ulysses North America did send along, but it is not like I can sit here and say, oh, well, you know, compared to the 2nd edition and the 5th edition, they went ahead and started. No, I couldn't tell you. I do understand from what I have heard is the 5th edition has kind of streamlined some of the gameplay and the mechanics from 4th edition, which, if that's the case, boy, I can only imagine how complex the 4th edition of this game was. Needed to wet the whistle there a little bit. All right, so as far as the game itself, it is a fantasy role-playing setting. It's a pretty interesting setting. I like it. It does have kind of that European flavor to it. European fantasy role-playing games tend to have a little more of a realistic kind of bend to them, as opposed to, say, for an example, let's say Pathfinder or D&D. You'll run across monsters that are like completely like, whoa, what? I mean, just like really crazy sort of, wow, how would that actually really exist? Even in a fantasy world. Now, I'm not saying that they're not cool. Not like, wow, that's a really bizarre and cool creature, monster, what have you. But usually European games tend to kind of go more along the lines of something more realistic, or more based in like European folklore and mythology. So the Dark Eye is still kind of high fantasy, because a lot of times European fantasy role-playing games will be kind of like a low magic sort of setting. Now, the Dark Eye isn't. The Dark Eye is still pretty much what I would consider to be high fantasy, just a little bit more of a realistic bend to the setting itself. So let's jump into the book. Now, I did a really detailed page through of the Dark Eye core book a few weeks back. So if you want to see like everything in the book, by all means, I recommend taking a peek at that. I am going to page through quite a bit of this, but I am also going to kind of skip. I'm not going to stop on every page and look at every page. So I am also going to toss on my reading specs here for a few moments. Okay, so on the back, it talks about the core rules a little bit. I will mention that this is translated. It's pretty good, pretty well done. There are, on occasion, a few things where you're sort of like, just as an American with American English, kind of sometimes some stuff doesn't come off right. Few and far between, but it does exist. And as I pointed out, it's kind of funny. So here, this US 2500 usually shows like what the price is, but here in the scan SKU code, it says $19.99. So $20. That is a pretty fine deal for a 400 plus page core book. So I've cheated a little bit. I've taken some Dark Eye dice from the Aventuria Adventure card game. So these are the 20s and the 6s. The 6 replaced with the Dark Eye symbol, and this has the 1 replaced by the Dark Eye symbol here. So those are the 2 dice that you're going to utilize in the Dark Eye are 20-sided dice and 6-sided dice. So we're going to hop in here. So the book opens up with a bit of an introduction. It's the usual, what is a role-playing game kind of thing. It doesn't go too deep into that, because honestly, at this point in time, I don't understand unless your game is aimed at somebody who's like 10 years old, how can you not know what a role-playing game is? So I sort of laugh sometimes when I see some of these core game books where they go on for like 6-7 pages with, oh, this is what a role-playing game is, and this is Mary, Bob, Joe, and Betty sitting around the table, and it's like, oh, come on, man, come on, I get past that. So just really like a page or two about what is a role-playing game. Then we talk about what is the Dark Eye. Aventuria is the setting. There are various different locations around the world of the game, of the setting. Okay, go into a bit of a kind of a breakdown of what each area is. Talks just a little bit about each of these realms. Then we get a little bit of a gameplay example here. Then we jump into the basic rules. And I want to say, so the Dark Eye is crunchy. It is not a rules-light system. It is a crunchy system, but it is strangely crunchy in different ways than, let's say, Pathfinder or Dungeons and Dragons, or most role-playing games that people feel are a little bit more complex. I'm not saying that the game is super complex. There is math involved in quite a bit of this, and when we get into the character creation, I will kind of discuss that a little bit. But the basic rules the rules overall, they're just kind of odd for different reasons. And I'm not saying they're bad, I'm just saying it's different. And I will get into that in just a sec. So, of course, we're looking at what you need. You've got the different checks. So basically skill checks, attribute checks, and so on and so forth. So you've got 8 attributes. So you've got courage. You've got sagacity, which is kind of like intelligence. Intuition, charisma, dexterity, which is hand-eye coordination. Because then you have agility, which usually you don't have a game that breaks the two down, right? It's the other, they're kind of combined, right? Agility is pretty much, how light you are on your feet, as well as your hand-eye coordination. A little different here. You got constitution, and then we've got strength. So when you have an attribute check, you simply roll a 20-sided die. Now, the premise of the Dark Eye is you always want to roll low. You want to roll lower than, say, your attribute or like your attack die. Well, not die. Attack roll, things like that. You're always looking to roll low. So if you roll a 1, it's considered to be a critical. So here on this special die, the 1 is represented by the Dark Eye symbol. But you also have botches, which are pretty much critical failures, but they call them a botch. And normally that's going to be on a 20. So this is on a natural roll, right? Okay, so rolled an 18, rolled a 9. So that would probably be a success. The 18 was probably wrong. But so if I roll a 1 on my first roll, that's going to be a critical success, maybe. Because throughout the book, there are little sidebars. Let's see. There we go, right here. Here's one of them right here. There's little sidebars that are like optional rules. And the only thing I can think of, and usually the optional rule is going to tell you, okay, so this makes the game a little more difficult. This makes the game a little more complex. This involves a little more math. Or on the flip side, it'll say, oh, okay, well, this kind of streamlines the process a little bit, so on and so forth. But there are a stunning number of these optional rules scattered throughout the book, which I found very surprising. The only thing I can think is that some of these optional rules were the core rules in earlier editions of the game. And because this game has been around for over 30 years, there are probably gamers out there who would prefer to utilize the optional rules as opposed to the new rules in the 5th edition. Now, this is just a guess. I do not know this for sure. This is just kind of the impression I've got. So anyway, then, of course, with your attribute checks, you'll have some modifiers here. And they showed different modifiers. Okay, so what if it's something really easy? What if it's super difficult? And in between. So pretty simple enough that your attribute check is just rolling the 20-sided die. Now, the thing that throws people off is when you have a skill check. And there are loads and loads of skills in the Dark Eye just in this core book. I'm taking a stab that there are probably plenty of other skills and professions and things like that in supplemental materials. So with a skill check, now things change, and this is where it throws people off a bit, because with a skill check, you're actually going to roll 3 20-sided dice. So you need to roll 3 20-sided dice because each skill is based upon 3 attributes. So, and you're like, huh? So climbing, and I'm just pulling this out, off the top of my head, right? It may not necessarily be specifically how it breaks down, but climbing could be a combination of strength, agility, and dexterity. So you're actually rolling your 3 dice, and you're looking at trying to get lower than each of those attributes. And you have to set it up where the numbers are going to be read in order, right? So this could be, let's say, that's strength, that's agility, that's dexterity. And you need to equal or better your attributes with that roll. Whereas before, we're just talking about, oh yeah, well, if you're just checking against strength, you roll a 20-sided die, and there might be some modifiers. Well, with the skills, you're not only rolling these dice, but you'll also get your skill level. And your skill level is able to drop dice down, die numbers down, to give you success. So, as an example, let's say that we rolled and let's do that. So let's say you've got like a skill level of 14 across the board in the 3 attributes that the skill utilizes. Well, okay, so you got the 6, you're good. You got the 9, you're good. Uh-oh. Got a 17, so that would fail. This is going to mean that, you wouldn't be able to pull this off. But with the skill levels, what you're able to do is you're able to subtract 1 from the die roll. So, for an example, with the 17, and what did I say? You got a skill level of what, 14 across the board? Let's say you've got a skill level of 4. You're able to deduct 4 from any of these dice to bring you a success. So you would actually have to, you would spend 3 of your skill level to bring this down to a 14. There it is. I was going to say, I'm not going to search around for the 14 too long. To bring it down to a 14, that would leave you with 1 skill level left. So the success, or how well you succeed, is based upon these leftover points from your skill level. Yeah, I know. So that's where it throws some people off as far as the skill checks. And you can do, it's kind of funny because you could have it where, because, yeah, where we got? I'm going to show off the character sheet in just a moment, but if we kind of zoom in and we take a look at physical skills, body control says it's agility, constitution. That is body, that's for the body control skill. All right. It's going to show craft skills. Music is charisma, dexterity, constitution. There's music right there. So, for an example, this is what kind of threw some people off when, I was talking about the game with some of the gang, right? That what throws people off is, okay, so you roll the dice. Now you have to find a way, how do you assign these dice to the various different attributes in the skills? Well, you could do it color-coded. That is one of the options in the rule book, talking about, well, use color-coded dice. Well, but that also means that you have, players all have to have 6 different 20-sided dice, because you got to match up these colors. And of course, everybody knows, gamers don't like to share our dice. We got lucky dice. We don't need anybody messing around with our lucky dice. Especially myself personally, with the percentile dice, and be like, no, man, those are mine. It's like, nope, these are my lucky dice. You're not taking these lucky dice. Go get your own dice to roll. So you're starting to look at, okay, well, that's a lot of, well, granted, you can get 20-siders for about $1. But still, I mean, that's a lot of different dice to have. Or, for an example like here, I've got 4 of these dark eye dice. Well, I can't sit there and say each color represents something because, geez, look at this. I just, can't tell which one's which, right? They're all black. So you could do it where you just roll one at a time. It's like, okay, so that's the first one, that's the second one, that's the third one. Oh, that's actually a pretty good roll. A 7, a 5, and a 3. That's I wouldn't have to spend any of my skill level, no doubt, probably on that. But you can do it that way, where it's like, okay, you roll each one separately, or you can also do it where you just roll it and go from, left to right. Doesn't matter. That's the first one, second one, third one. So if you're not color coding, this is pretty much what I recommend as the easiest way to roll skills, especially if you don't have, a multitude of different colors. Plus, as someone who has run umpteen different role-playing games over decades, I can tell you right now, you'd be sitting there and let's say you're playing like this and somebody says, actually, this is one of the Torg Eternity dice that I've got doing double duty here. Let's say somebody would say, okay, well, the yellowish orange is number 1, and then the like red and white is 2, and then the Torg die is 3. And then they spend like 20 minutes rolling those dice, and they're getting crappy rolls, and then suddenly they're going to say, well, no, I'm going to switch this up now, and now I'm going to do the black die, and it's like, oh, for crying out loud. You know how it is. You know how it is. If you've played role-playing games, or actually any sort of game over the years, you've got people who are very superstitious with their dice, and if dice aren't rolling well, it's like, you're about ready to throw them across the room. And I'll be honest, I've done it. I'm not putting myself above that. And every one of my friends, I know for a fact, I have seen them go, damn dice. give me different dice. Give me different dice. So one thing I will point out too is when you're doing the attribute check, is if you roll lower than, so for an example, if you get a critical, you actually, it's not a critical. So you have to roll another die, and if you equal to or lower than that attribute, then you get the critical. And it's the same with the botch. So if you roll a 20 and it's a botch, it's a critical failure, you have to roll another die higher than that, like say for an example, strength, constitution, what have you, and then it's a botch. And I found that a little odd. Now, yes, I get it. I understand. If you don't do that, then you pretty much have a 5% chance on every roll of either a critical success or a botch. So I get that. Well, yeah, that might be a little too much. But I don't know, rolling the extra die just seemed like a, kind of a silly extra step. I don't mind the fact, I mean, this is supposed to be like heroic role-playing game. So, maybe there's more, critical successes and more dire, mistakes that get made. I don't know. Just saying, I thought that was a little odd. It is an option to not roll that second die and just take that result of the first die, either success, failure, critical, or a botch. So, anyway, just wanted to point that out because I forgot to mention that. All right, so that's pretty much kind of how the skill checks work, is with the 3 dice. But then, strangely enough, when you go into like attacking and defending, then you're rolling 1 die again. So I don't know. Like I said, some folks kind of have a bit of a hard time kind of wrapping their head around, why am I rolling these 3 dice? When I have like a skill number, that's what I got to roll, and then your skill level actually is what you get to deduct from the dice, but you're hoping you don't have to deduct too much from it because you want the higher number of success levels. Anyway, so this is the color wheel that they say, oh, well, if you want to get different colored dice. Then they're talking about the skill points, the skill levels, because you have a quality level of success. Talking about different checks, fate points. I believe fate points are something new for the 5th edition that were not in the previous editions. Once again, very similar to fate points in the Fate role-playing game, or bennies, or possibilities, as you'd find in Ulisses North America's Toward Eternity. It just allows you to kind of tweak your rolls and things like that. I'm talking about regaining fate points, different conditions. One thing I thought was kind of cool is it does go into the different detail about various conditions that your character could be in: confusion, paralysis, encumbered, blind. Well, those are states now. I thought that was kind of cool how they went into some of that. Then we get into the character creation, and I will tell you that the character creation is either some people are going to really dig it, or some folks will absolutely despise it, because it is loads and loads and loads of just number crunching and everything else. So let's pop in here, because you use a point buy system for your character creation. So depending on what kind of characters your game master and the rest of the group decides they want to play, myself personally, I'm a big fan of, you're just a lowly farm kid who suddenly gets swept up in these great events. It's kind of like Luke Skywalker sort of thing. Luke doesn't have a whole lot of skills, to start off with. Well, Frodo's not, he's just a kind of a more curious hobbit than most, a little more adventurous than most, but there's nothing really that stands out about Frodo. Those are the kind of campaigns I like to, those are the sort of characters I like to start campaigns with. Well, you don't have to do that with the Dark Eye. You can actually have your characters be very experienced. And in fact, right here, it says maximum values at hero creation. So you could start off with inexperience, that gives you 900 points, or you could be legendary, all the way up to legendary, 2,100 points. And you will find that a lot of these points go a long way. Now, sometimes, especially for spellcasters, they end up having to shell out more points so that they're able to use magics. But here it even shows creating your hero in 15 steps. That's a lot of steps. So you've got to decide which kind of hero to play, choose experience level, choose race, choose culture. That's pretty easy to zip through that. Allocate points to attributes, choose a profession, choose advantages and disadvantages. Now when you start getting into advantages and disadvantages, Now you're sitting there, okay, minus this, subtract that, plus this. Improve abilities, calculate combat technique values, choose special abilities, review choices, calculate derived characteristics, of which there are many. Buy equipment, choose your starting age, and give your hero a name. So, you will find now we go along through all these pages here. There are going to be a bunch of pages devoted to the character creation, which is fine. I don't have an issue with that. But it's just, I mean, it's just loaded down with what do you spend points on? You go, okay, I got these points. I can spend points on this, and so on and so forth. There are only really 4 races that you can have a character in the core rules. That's human, dwarf, elf, and half-elf. I honestly don't know if there's more race choices out there. I don't know. I have no clue. I am not, like I said, I am not well-versed in the Dark Eye. I would have to assume there should be some more. But in the core book, you're going to get the 4. Then we're talking about the attributes. I should say attributes. Then you get different... your cultural background will give you bonuses. Your profession... advantages and disadvantages. All these charts through here. I'm maimed. Improving your abilities, your combat technique values, and then there are also different combat techniques, special abilities, and some of them will have prerequisites too. Starting age, profession. Then it says, okay, so let's do your backstory. Here's some questions you should be answering. It's like, okay, go through all that. Then we do get some pretty cool sample characters throughout. I really dig the artwork. I think the artwork is really well done. And I've seen this with Torg Eternity as well. You're not seeing a lot of big full page or big 2-page splashes, taking away from all the information about the game. So they're usually, you know, fairly smaller images throughout the book. But the artwork's really, really good. And there are a lot of example characters in here that players can easily sit there and say, oh, okay, well, you know what? I'll be a blessed one of Rhonda, or I should say Rondra, because I thought that looks pretty cool. Now, interestingly enough, so if you want to be like a mage, a wizard, spellcaster, you have to kind of be born with that ability. So that goes into your character creation process. Now, funny enough, there are priests who are able to use spells, essentially they're spells, right? Rituals, stuff like that. You could learn that down the line. But that was kind of strange. That, well, to be a mage, kind of have to be born with it, so you have to create your character with that spellcasting ability. But then, of course, you can create, you know, like priests and stuff like that. But a regular character could actually learn various different religious rituals and stuff. So I was like, huh, okay. What, you know, there's that big a difference between the different kinds of spells. But as I mentioned, loads and loads of example characters. Then they talk about the races in detail. Then we talk about the cultures. I mean, a lot of this stuff is really, really interesting. I thought it was really, really cool. The weird thing is now you're seeing all these cultures, and we're going to see the professions in just a minute. We see the different races as well. You kind of need to know this stuff when you're doing your character creation. So all this stuff here is still sort of character creation information. So because, you know, it's showing like common skills, advantages, disadvantages for the different cultures. Then we get into, we're still going through cultures here. Should be hitting the professions next. But like I said, really, really good artwork. Really, really nice artwork. And you can see there is more of that sort of realistic look to the setting. Whereas a lot of times, you're not going to see like a beholder in the dark eye. Of course, now watch, there's actually a beholder somewhere in some adventure, and I'm just not aware of it, saying that you'll never run across one. There we go. So now we got the professions, and there are loads of professions. And I have to admit, I thought it was kind of cool. There are mundane professions. So you could effectively start out as a fairly average sort of person in the game. And that falls really into like that whole kind of inexperienced level for your point buy-in. So guards, healers, hunter, knight, mercenary, merchant, rogues. Then we should get into the magical professions. And there are quite a lot of these. Cat witch, raven witch, black mage, toad witch, gray mage, guildless mage. Then the blessed professions. These are the holy characters. But loads and loads of professions, and there are plenty more professions out there. I am not sure how many have been translated to English, though. All right, then we start getting into advantages and disadvantages. Like I said, this is still sort of along the lines of you should know this stuff for your character creation. Got skills. Talking about different skills. There are there's like 80 skills all together. Of course, keeping in mind that spells are kind of considered skills too. Then we get combat. Now, the combat chapter isn't like there isn't a lot to it. It is a little crunchy. It's not too crunchy. So you can, of course, you can attack. You can also defend, and you can defend either by parrying, which is for hand-to-hand weapons, and dodging, which is for ranged weapons. But there's more to it than just that. But that's kind of what it boils down to, and it'll go through. Okay, so choose a target, determine attack distance, attack, close combat reach, parrying, critical success, botches. There's like a botch table here. There's various different tables for different stuff in here for like critical success or a botch. Kind of give you sort of an idea, examples, which are kind of, I think, more designed for like the game master, because you don't want like a critical, even in combat, like a critical hit to always be kind of like described as the same exact thing. That gets kind of boring. I'm talking about like I said, cramped spaces, 2-weapon combat, attacking from behind. So there's more to it than just, okay, well, I roll an attack roll and, the other person rolls to dodge or parry or whatever. And they go into ranged combat. Then we get magic. My understanding, I don't know for sure, but my understanding, I believe before the 5th edition, the Dark Eye was sort of along the lines of most fantasy role-playing games. Well, we'll talk about the big two, right? So, D&D, Pathfinder. Well, Pathfinder, you can pretty much run a game with the core book. You effectively could. Is it going to be a great game? Not really, because there are like loads of other books that you should probably have on your shelf. The bestiary for one, right? But you can conceivably run an adventure with the Pathfinder core book. D&D, on the other hand, you really can't. I mean, granted, you could, for either one, you can get the starter box sets and easily be introduced into the game and start running stuff. But with D&D, when we're looking at like the core books, you do really need to have 3 books to run Dungeons and Dragons, the Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, the Monster Manual. I understand previous editions of the Dark Eye kind of fell into that as well, where you needed like 4 or 5 books to really run anything. And magic was one of them. There was really, I believe, there was really no magic information in like the base book. You had to go buy the magic book. Now, saying that, it's not like there's tons of magic in this. There's a good amount, but I do know that there is like a specific magic book that is out there for the Dark Eye 5th edition, but it has not been translated into English yet. As far as I know, it has not been translated into English. All right, so kind of zipping through, talking about different like artifact magic, things like that. What a really, I dig the setting. I dig the, I dig a lot of the Dark Eye as far as background. Talking about like tradition of, now we're talking about like different magic traditions, because as a spellcaster, you have to, you know, it's like, you know, choosing a school of magic, like in many other fantasy role-playing games. All right, anyway, moving right along. Then we've got, these are the spells. We get some spells here. There's a good number of spells. So at least you are getting some magic spells in here, but it's not an overwhelming number of them. Oh, like, yep. Nudity here. Sorry about that. It's kind of like side boob nudity. Right along. So then we got some rituals. Then we start getting into showing off some of the various charts for the spells. Wish I had this in a hardcover. I mean, now don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that this digest size isn't cool for $20. I just wish it was a little. I wish I had the hardcover. Well, number one, this looks silly with the other Ulisses North America books that I got, because those are all regular size hardcovers. So anyway, all right. So that's more about the rituals. And all right, where's that final chapter here? Oh, here we go. Yeah. Then we've got detailed rules, which are kind of like advanced rules, which I thought were pretty cool. A lot of different stuff, like stuff on poison, visibility, strategic movement. So if you really want to start delving into, if you want to make the rules even more crunchy, you can. Then there's a bestiary, which I gotta admit, I found a little lacking. Not a whole lot in the bestiary. There's a bit, but you know. Okay, so we got like talking about elementals. Boom, that's it. Talking about animals. That's it. Yeah, not much, right? Okay, familiars. Yeah. So, but of course, obviously enough, there is a bestiary for the Dark Eye. So, then we got equipment. Not a ton of stuff in here. Although, this is something I thought was cool. There's images for all the different weapons, so you know what they actually look like. And I have to laugh because I remember back in the day playing, you know, like I want to say we were playing Dungeons and Dragons at that point. So I mean, I wasn't even 13 yet, so I might have been 11, 12, something like that. Nobody seemed to know what a morning star actually looked like. And I was like, okay, so I don't get it. So what's the difference between a flail, a morning star, and a mace? So I thought it was kind of cool that we get these images of different weapons, different bows, crossbows, stuff like that. All right, so we're almost done with the book here. And then just kind of talk about equipment. Then we got game tips for the game master. Not a whole lot in here. and then we start getting into charts and the index. So, 414 pages. And as I had mentioned before, talking about the character creation. So, let's zoom out a little bit. So this is the character sheet, right? So the character sheet is 4 pages. So you've got the front page, second page with all the various different skills. So this is your skills page. Then you've got your combat. It's basically your combat page. I do dig the character sheets, though. I do like it. And I appreciate the fact that the attributes are right here. And you also have them on the other pages as well. Because so many things are derived from those base attributes there. So you got that. Then you got your equipment on the back. And if you happen to be a spell user or a religious character who can use rituals, you got a 5th page. So yeah, there's a lot to the Dark Eye. As I mentioned, there are a lot of secondary stats that you have to put together from your life points, toughness, spirit, things like that. Those are all derived from the various different core attributes. So we took a look through the Dark Eye, kind of talked a little bit about different aspects of it. So what do I think of the game all in all? Well, pretty interesting. So I do like the background. I like the setting. The setting seems pretty cool. I would like to really delve into the Dark Eye a lot more, get a better understanding of the game itself. The core book itself, I like the artwork. There's plenty of cool stuff involved in it. The rules are kind of all throughout the book and all kind of mixed in with setting background, which I thought was a little strange. The layout could have been much more intuitively presented. For an example, you're sitting there and you get into the character creation, which a lot of games do this, don't get me wrong. So it's not as if the Dark Eye, sorry, I had an itch. my leg. I'm just scratching my leg. Yeah, okay. Anyway, it's not unusual where you will see games where it's okay, we're jumping in the character creation. And I know a lot of gamers out there, they dig that. They want that. They want to be able to yeah, that's the first thing we're going to do anyway. So let's create a character. I, on the other hand, think you should have setting background. Give me a story. Give me what is the gist of this game? What are these characters about? And then give me the opportunity to create the character, right? So give me an idea of what this game is about. What are these characters, what's the main gist? What's the flavor of this game? And then allow me to start rolling up a character and putting things together. Because the Dark Eye uses that the point buy system to create your character. It's you're buying stuff you don't even know really what it is. That's why I pointed out that, well after the character creation section, when you're talking about it's showing the skills and all these other things, that's when, that's all part of really the character creation process. You should know something about it. So that kind of threw me off a little bit. The game is crunchy in some ways that people just aren't used to, the rolling the 3 20-sided dice for your skill checks seems a little odd for people. I mean, I found it kind of odd, but then again, there's a lot of extra crunch in D&D and Pathfinder as well. It's just a different sort of complexity that you have to look at. From my understanding, people in Germany, because this has been such a popular role-playing game for 3 decades, well, more than 3 decades, I understand people in Germany are very split about the Dark Eye. Some people absolutely love it. Some folks don't dig it. Some gamers are like, how do you play that game? Wow, how in the world do you play that game and you're not playing XYZ instead? So so I can see the English edition of the 5th edition also being like that. I think it's cool. Like I said, I like the setting. Yeah, you know what? The mechanics and stuff like that, I throw half that stuff out of games anyway. So, but I mean, if you're gonna run it as written, it is. Even those optional rules kind of like you couldn't decide. Yes, this is how it's gonna be. These are the rules. These are the official rules. This is how you play. As opposed to having all these different optional rules tossed in there saying, well, you know, if you don't like this, you can do it this way. That's sort of, I don't know, should have been, okay, let's stick to our guns. This is the way the system's going to be. And if you don't like it, well, you know, house rule it all you want. As opposed to saying, well, yeah, if you want a little more complexity, you can do this. Or, to me, I found that a little strange. So, the rules themselves, the mechanics in that, yeah, they're fine. The setting in that seems pretty cool. Not enough of it in the book, in my opinion. I mean, we get a lot of the culture and the profession, stuff like that, but we don't get a lot of stuff in the grand scheme of things. And that is what I believe is the biggest selling point for The Dark Eye, is its massive meta plot that has been going on for decades. Once again, that's probably something that's going to appeal to a lot of gamers out there and turn off other gamers as well. Because, you know, some folks like to have that big, you know, I can dive in and there's this whole big story that I can kind of jump in at any point. And there's this big, long history of this game behind it in this game setting. Wow, that's super cool. Whereas other players and game masters will sit there saying, well, that's kind of a railroad. You're railroading me to these conclusions in these various different adventures. I don't dig that. I want my players and I to do whatever the hell we want in this setting. So personally, I think the meta plot's cool, but then again, I've always thought meta plots were pretty cool when they were fairly popular in the late 80s, early 90s. So here's the weird thing. If you're into D&D, if you're into Pathfinder, is there a reason why you would want to go check out The Dark Eye? I don't think so. I really don't think so. If you are someone who is brand new to role-playing games, fantasy role-playing games, it might be a little too complex for someone just, you know, for players just getting into role-playing games. They might be turned off by the complexity of the system itself. It's, like I said, it's not difficult to wrap your head around. It is just a bunch of math. You got to figure out a bunch of stuff. I don't know. But this doesn't make it a bad game. That's the weird thing. It's sort of like, I don't know who the market is, right? I don't know who is part of the market for the game, unless it's somebody who's looking for something that's not D&D, something that's not Pathfinder, something that's a little bit different, something that's got a little more realistic vibe to it, being a high fantasy role-playing game, and that has decades of material out there available to it. Now, having said that, vast majority of that is in German. And one of the knocks I have to say is, as much as I'm like, yeah, I really want to kind of explore much more into The Dark Eye, because I do think it's pretty cool. I'm trying to see who would like be driven to this game, unless somebody they're very dissatisfied with their D&D or Pathfinder or both or whatever, what have you, and they want a crunchy fantasy role-playing system. But as far as I know, like the Magic book that's got like tons and tons of magic in it has not been translated into English yet, and I understand that is supposed to be like an essential book. There are some adventures in that have been translated. I mean, there's a lot out there in English for The Dark Eye that pretty much completes the system. except for the Magic book, which I don't know if that was part of a Kickstarter that they just haven't gotten around to finishing up yet, or that's going to be a Kickstarter. But that is kind of a knock against the system too, is that there's all this stuff out there in German. It just hasn't all, and of course I don't expect it all to have been translated in a couple of years, but there are, from what it seems, there are some core books, some core supplements that have not been translated into English. So, I don't know. All in all, though, I think it's cool. I like the artwork. I think the setting is pretty cool. I have been looking at some of the other supplements, which kind of flesh out stuff that's not in the core book. Because remember, I can only tell you what I'm only reviewing the core book. Could you take the core book and run an adventure? Yes, you could. It's probably along the same lines of when I was saying, well, yeah, you can go and buy the core book for Pathfinder and run an adventure. Are you getting the full Pathfinder experience? No. And that is what I would say is the same thing with the Dark Eye. Also, there is no introductory adventure in this as well, which to me, I always ding a core book for not having, an adventure in it, because how are you supposed to kind of get, wrap your head around some of these mechanics and things like that, especially when they're fairly different than what people are used to experiencing. So, but still think it's pretty cool. I do like it. I like the core book more in the context of the other stuff I've been looking at. Like I said, kind of fills in a lot of the blanks. All in all, as a core rule book, I give the Dark Eye a 7 out of 10. So I do recommend it. As I keep saying, I'm not positive who I'm recommending it to. Not newbies, not people who are already heavily versed or invested in D&D or Pathfinder, or even, let's say, RuneQuest or 13th Age or any number of fantasy role-playing games. But I think if somebody is experienced in role-playing games as a GM and they want to get more of kind of a European flavor and a little more realistic high fantasy setting, yeah, then the Dark Eye is pretty cool. All right, so that is it for today's show. As I mentioned, tomorrow I will be reviewing Remnants, and much easier to actually go through Remnants and do the review for Fireside Games as opposed to going through the book and kind of discussing the book. Anyway, so I will be back tomorrow. When you're not watching The Daily Dope, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. Come on, you know the drill by now. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Tomorrow's Friday. I will be back. So until then, enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and as always, thank you very much for watching. Thanks again for watching The Daily Dope, presented by The Gaming Gang. If you like this episode, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. And if you dig the channel, please subscribe. If you'd like to check out our previous episode, click right here. And if you want to check out a somewhat randomly selected episode, give a click right down here. It'll be like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what you'll get. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'm Jeff McAleer.